Hey, what's up? I'm Seth Warburton, and this is What Movies Teach, the channel where I analyze the direct and the indirect messages in movies, ultimately because I love sharing movies with my kids, and I want to make sure it's a good one. So this last weekend, we went to a movie, Raya and the Last Dragon. So this movie is Disney's new animated princess movie. This isn't your regular princess movie. This isn't like a Snow White or a Cinderella or a Sleeping Beauty. This is more complex, and I feel like this is just as much for the parents as for the kids. With that said, I feel like it's more for the older kids than the younger kids. But we'll get to that in a minute. So just a quick recap. This channel is where I review a movie. So I do talk about everything about the movie. I do spoil it. So spoiler alert. So I review that movie. I talk about the lessons. I'm a learning designer, and so I love looking at what we're getting out of the things that we watch. So what are we taking away from it? I do also talk about, at the end, the content. So things like sexuality, language, violence, those types of things. Because some of those things can detract from the main message. So I still bring those up. Now, those are very specific to me and my family. So I like to share what I felt about that content, if it was something that I would want my kids to see or not. And again, that's specific to me, to my kids, to their personalities. You might completely disagree, and that's fine. Either way, I'd love to see what you think about these movies, about these messages, about the content. If you agree, disagree, what you think. So put it in the comments below. The story starts where we see Raya, and she's in this land, and it's desolate, and there's statues everywhere, and you understand that they have been ravaged, that the world is falling apart. And each land in this area is named after a piece of the dragon. So you have fang, you have heart, spine, tail, talon. This movie is called Raya and the Last Dragon because in this land, dragons are present, or at least have been for a long time. These dragons are a little different than what we're used to. They're not big, fire-breathing, bat-winged dragons that are pretty mean. They're super nice, they talk, they're furry, and they control water, which is kind of, again, a little interesting take on this. She goes back and tells the story how she was actually a big part of this all falling apart. This land got attacked by these creatures called the Droon, which is kind of scary. So when I talk about content, I'll talk about the Droon a little bit, but they're this faceless cloud mass that just kind of move in random ways, and when they pass over somebody, they basically take away their life. The person turns into a statue. So the Droon were attacking Kumandra. This happened like 500 years ago, and the dragons came together. They used all their magic, because they have dragon magic, apparently, and they formed a dragon gem. It's this blue ball, and the power of that gem got rid of all the Droon, which was really cool. But it also got rid of all the dragons at the same time, all except one. So we start off with Raya telling her stories. She's from a land called Heart, and how that's where they had the dragon gem. This was the land that held the dragon gem. But how all the lands at this time in her life are kind of against each other. They don't trust each other, they don't get along. And how her dad, the chief of the land called Heart, right, coming from the Heart, wants to bring everybody together. He believes that they cannot survive as a society, as a world, really, without unity, without coming together. And that's really the big first lesson of this movie, is it unity. Because you see, this chief, her father, brings everybody together. They have a big meal. Raya actually meets this friend. Her name is Namari. And they really get along well. Raya shows her the dragon gem, and Namari totally betrays Raya, kicks her and throws her down, and goes to take the dragon gem. And then all of the other chiefs of all the lands come together. They see what Namari's trying to do. They all get upset, and the unity is destroyed in this act of mistrust. They all go, they try and all take the dragon gem all at once. They accidentally drop it and break it. Everybody takes a piece of the dragon gem and leaves the Heartland, and when they do that, the Droon come back. So the dragons had gotten rid of the Droon come back. It's this really cool just metaphor for life, right? This disunity causes this destruction, quite literally in this story. And you see it just starts tearing everything apart. So unfortunately, Raya's father sacrifices himself to save Raya. He throws her off a bridge. The Droon apparently don't like water, and when he does that, the Droon comes over and he is petrified as well. And that's kind of where this story all starts, is Raya is super sad because her father's petrified. She trusted the Namari, and instead she betrayed her, and then that kind of just caused all this destruction to happen where the gem was broken and the world starts falling apart. So the next lesson that we get out of this movie is a lesson of hope, because you now fast forward to where the movie had started. It was Raya in this desolate land. It's been 6 years since the Druun had come, and she has been looking for the last dragon every day for the last 6 years. She has hope that the last dragon can help them. So she does find the last dragon, which is really cool, and Sisu is this great fun character where she's kind of sarcastic, she's also light and happy, and not as just brooding as Raya is. She's been scarred by this, the Druun coming back and by the whole situation with Namaari. But the next lesson we see is that Raya and Sisu the dragon, now looking like a human, they find this other kid named Boone, and he helps them out almost immediately. And we hear his story where his whole family was petrified by the Druun. You know, that's what's happened with Raya. And then we see kind of as the story goes along that Raya starts connecting with these other people who have lost their family. And family is a big part of this story as well. I would almost say that's the next lesson, that we need to remember our family, but also, you know, seek family, where Raya starts finding people in similar situations where they've lost their family, and they kind of create this makeshift family where they have this goal of bringing the dragon gems together. And that's pretty cool. So family is a big part of this story. So then you see that Raya, Sisu, Boone, they go to another land that's kind of on the water, and the next lesson is at this land, there's some betrayal there. They do find the gem, but they also find another companion, and it's a baby. It's this little baby. And the next thing I learned is that I don't really like when a monkey throws around a baby in a movie. I have this weird thing about watching movies with babies in it and just making sure they're okay. And in this movie, this baby is being taken care of by these monkeys, and they get around by just throwing this baby around. The monkeys jump around, they throw the baby, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, protect the baby. She's fine, and it's supposed to be funny. For me, it wasn't, though. Anyways, so we get into the story, and this is kind of just how it keeps going, where Raya goes to a new land, she finds a new gem, and she makes a new friend. And the next one, his name is Tong, and he's in the land of Spine. And we see the next lesson in this movie is that sometimes you have to do the greater good, even though it's not easy. Because you see that Tong is actually the only member of this community left. Everybody else has been turned into a statue. And he's left because it's his duty. He's left because he wants to still protect his land, even though it doesn't make any sense because there's no people there. We also see the greater good come out because Namaari comes and follows Raya again, and to save her companions, she goes and faces Namaari alone. She knows that the greater good is to bring all the dragon gems together, and to do that, her friends need to get away, her new family, and Sisu. And so she goes and pretty much sacrifices herself because she gets beat pretty bad by Namaari. But in the last minute, Sisu comes and helps her, reveals herself to Namaari as a dragon, saves Raya, and they head off. So the movie's starting to get to the end here, where we have the last piece of the dragon gem that our team needs to get, and it's in the land of Fang, which is Namaari's land. And you see that Namaari's mom is the leader of this land. And the next lesson I get out of this movie that you see kind of throughout is that Namaari's mom has a lot of control over Namaari. She's the one who kind of motivated her to betray Raya in the first place. And then we see when Namaari comes back and tells her about the dragon, Namaari's like, hey, this dragon could unite everybody. We could have a united country and it'd be really cool. And her mom's like, no, but it could be better if we just have the dragon and we have the dragon gem and we take care of just our people. And Namaari's like, yeah, that does sound better. Okay. And she just goes along with her mom. Her mom wields a ton of control over her. And that's a lesson I got. As a parent, and parents in general, have a lot of control over their kids, and they need to wield it wisely. Another one of those responsibility, power type moments. With great power comes great responsibility. You need to guide your children well. At least that's something I got out of this part of the movie. Okay, so in the end, Sisu convinces Raya to meet with Namaari and to trust her. And she does. She's like, okay, you're right. We need to try that. They meet with her privately. Namaari, though, having been convinced by her mom, pulls out a crossbow and says, I'm taking Sisu with me. There's this whole moment where Sisu's like, hey, don't give up. Still show trust in Namaari. Even though she's got a gun on us, basically, or a crossbow, still show it. And Raya, she just can't. She's had too much mistrust. She goes to try and take away the crossbow from Namaari. Namaari pulls the trigger, kills Sisu, actually. So Sisu's out of the picture now, and Raya is ticked. She's very upset. And they have this big fight in the end, And you see that the fight gets them nowhere, that they just fight to a standstill. And around them, the Droon, because Sisu's now dead, all the water starts disappearing everywhere, and the Droon start coming out and just taking everybody away. And you see in the climactic moments of this movie where Raya's not getting anywhere with this fight, her and her friends are the only ones with the dragon pieces, and that's the only thing keeping the Droon away. And everybody has their own piece, but it's not enough. It's not doing anything. And you see this moment that Raya really understands, wait, you got to take the first step with trust. And that's the big main message of this movie. In fact, I asked my kids at the end, what is the big thing you got out of this movie? And they're like, you got to trust people, even when it's hard and even when it doesn't go well. Trust is always a gamble. You don't just trust somebody because it's going to work out. You trust somebody because it's essentially the best thing for you in the whole situation, even if it doesn't go well for you. It didn't go well for her dad in the beginning of the movie, but you could see he still wanted to give that trust, even though it didn't work out. And you see Raya has a really hard time with the trust, and every time she mistrusts or she withholds her trust, things don't go well. In the very end, she finally just gives her piece of the dragon gem to Namari, actually, who has another piece, and says, I trust you to fix this. And the Droon take Raya. And then all her friends do the same thing. They all give their pieces to Namari. You know, Raya takes the first step, which is a big deal. And Namari reassembles the dragon gem, and it works. The dragon gem gets rid of the Droon again. And actually, after the Droon are gone, they're gone completely, and that big, you understand that big show of trust actually does more than that. It brings back Sisu, and then Sisu and the dragon gem, they're all back together, and that actually brings back all the rest of the dragons. And the world is now united. And that's the big lesson. Everybody comes together, everybody's happy. Raya's dad comes back. Everybody who's been petrified because the Droon are completely gone, they all come back to life. And it's really fun. So, guys, this movie was a lot of fun. The animation was incredible, and I really enjoyed it. But the big question is, should I show this movie to my kids? Now, I already did. We went to the theater and we watched it, and it was fun together. But there's a couple things I wish I would have done differently, because there are some scary things. There's a couple things content-wise that I think distracted my youngest. So she's 5 years old, and she got a little scared in this movie. In the very beginning of the movie, Raya explains how the Droon, when they were destroyed the first time by the dragons, all the people that were petrified came back to life. But later in the movie, when Raya's father is petrified, my daughter was in tears. She's like, oh no, he's gone. And so I reminded her, I grabbed her hand and I said, oh, look, no, remember, though, that if they defeat the Droon, he'll come back. And I had to remind her of that. And I should have been kind of reminding her of that through that intense situation. This movie's more intense. You know, people are being turned, into statues kind of throughout that beginning sequence where the gem is broken. And I should have reminded her quickly that, hey, no, but don't worry. If they defeat the Droon, they'll come back. Because then that gave her comfort, and she's like, oh, okay. So he's not gone forever. There's absolutely no language, though. There's no sexuality, but there is some violence. So I think this is really cool. But the choreography of the fighting was incredible. And you have these women that are just really skilled, and it's fun to see. And when we got home from this movie, my 5-year-old is like, I want to be a fighter. And she was coming at me with her fists and her feet and everything. Now, luckily, my wife has really taught our kids not to hit. So when she came up at me, she's like, she wasn't actually coming into contact with me, which was really great. But that's been my wife's work for a long time to make sure, we don't hit. That's not something we do as a part of our play. But she came back from this movie really, gung-ho about fighting. Now, I think that can be a really good thing. I think self-defense and fight disciplines and learning those skills can be really, really helpful. But I think, you need a lot of lesson beforehand if you're worried about them picking that up, because, it is stylized and it's really cool. That it's almost like a dance. And my daughter loves to dance. She thinks it's really fun to dance. And so I think fighting was actually kind of cool to her. She wanted to be a fighter. But I had to remind her how we don't actually hit people. We don't kick people. That situation was for self-defense, and it just needs to stay there. So in the end, though, would I share this with my kids? Yes, I would. The lessons are really important. I just would need to make sure that as a parent, I give some contents to my youngest, and to make sure that she has an understanding. And to go into this movie not thinking it's just a fun princess movie, that there actually is probably some explanation I need to give. There's probably some support I need to give as a parent. It's not one that I would probably just turn on for my youngest if she had never seen it before. Okay, that's it. That was Raya and the Last Dragon. If you like this review, please like this video below. Comment if you agree, disagree, or any thoughts you have about Raya and the Last Dragon as well. I hope this helped. If you like this type of video and you'd like to see more like this, then also subscribe below, and I'll talk to you next time.